Hello to all you user-driven designers. I'm Joe from Modest UX, and I'm here today to talk to you about creating meaningful personas. So meaningful personas, what are they and why do you do them? For those of you that are not familiar or maybe have not really dove into them before, they're a great user experience tool that's fantastic at giving design direction, for example, when you're building a prototype or an application. Not only is it going to give you design direction, but it's going to really give you a holistic view at the application, all the people that are involved in the process, so that that maybe you are looking at a certain user when you should actually be including other participants in the persona process. So at Modest, anytime we start a project, we have clear direction from our customer, usually the person that's hiring us, and we have to define up front what the business objectives are. Why are they paying us money to build a prototype or build an application? And the personas are just invaluable to really align the business goals with the goals of the and the needs of the users. So sometimes there is gaps between internal application with management and employees, and customer facing. Maybe a company's goals need to be aligned with the type of users that they're wanting to access their website for various reasons. So there are a lot of really great persona templates out there. If you're watching this video, you've probably seen some. You may even have some books or some literature on how to create them. At Modest, the template versus story approach, as we call it, we tend to follow more of the story approach, just from the standpoint that people aren't robots, at least not yet, and so we find that creating sort of a persona that's not as regimented or template oriented allows us to better align our vision with the actual users we're designing for. And I got a little ahead here. The understand phase, that answers the question, when do you do a persona? Is it at the beginning of a project? Is it at the end? And for those of you that are familiar with the Modest phases, understand, design, validate, we typically like to do them in the understand phase. There is obviously not something that's set in stone that says you can't do them later on. There's examples where personas can be quite effective after you've designed a prototype, after you actually have a functional application. If you're doing a redesign, again, user experience design is a fluid process. It's not something that's static. So typically understand phase after we've had a chance to talk with the key stakeholders, had some user interviews, maybe during or after a journey map. We need to understand who we're dealing with to be able to put the persona together, especially when we're using the the story phase approach. All right, so elements of a persona. So early on in my career, I was actually in sales before I became a designer, selling computers, pharmaceuticals, whatever paid the bills, I would sell it. And I was quickly introduced to the value of understanding who my customers were, and then also what is driving their decision or influencing their decision-making process. So these were the keys to success in sales. And then also, what need do these customers have that's currently not being met, or maybe they don't even know they need it yet, that my product can solve. Fourth, perception. Is there anything going in that these customers already have a perception about my product or my application in this sense that is maybe preventing them from buying or adopting my product? And then ultimately, how am I going to get them to overcome these barriers and buy my product, which boils down to not only identifying and understanding my product and my customers, but probably equally, if not more important, is the competition. And so if you're sitting there saying, well, we're designing applications, we're designing software, who's the competition? Especially if you're designing internal applications that, for a large corporation that are being mandated to be used. If employees are not using, or if the customer base is not using your application or your software, they are using something else. It may be a competitor, or worst case, they may be using nothing, which means you as a designer have not created the actual need or value proposition for them to actually want or desire to use your product. So these 5, and again, this is probably not an extensive list, but it gives you a good start, in my opinion, on what you should be looking at when kind of putting together, who are the users and who are you designing for, and really, it's unbeknown to me at the time, the sales techniques I would be using early in my career would come full circle and provide value once again when I became a designer, because I think a lot of these principles apply when you're putting together personas. And as with sales, the better you know your customer in design, the better your design will be. So, once you have an adequate understanding of the landscape and users, it's time to actually create a persona. And there are a couple of ways you can do a persona. You can use an actual person. This would be one of the users, customers, employees, depending on the project. At Modest, and me personally, I prefer to use a fictitious example that encompasses a conglomeration of kind of all the folks that we've interviewed, all the parties that we've got to know through the understand phase. And I guess a few of the reasons why at Modest we prefer this. I'm not saying that there's only one way to do this, but one, it's just personal preference. 2, it helps avoid any singling out of a participant, or if you're doing an internal application, an employee, maybe you don't want to call out someone by name. And 3rd, I think it also helps to create, these broad representation of all the people and parties that you've interviewed, to give a broader voice of users, and also include all the touch points and interactions that need to be addressed. And ultimately, as I've mentioned, Modest prefers to envision the actual users in a story format to help drive our design decisions. So it might sound a little cheesy, but in doing this, we start to feel vested not only with the technical aspect of the project, but we create these, living, personas that are near and dear to us as we start to begin to develop and design the actual prototypes. So we become vested in that aspect as well. And which we believe is good for any user-driven design, is to look, obviously, at the user first and foremost. So the example we are going to show you in the next video is one we did for a large aerospace company. You can see Samantha, or as you will find out in the next video, better known as Sam by her employees, is an example that we created. And the challenge that we had was that this company was experiencing a spike in attrition with their less experienced employees. You know, the employees who would use, maybe 3 to 5 years of work experience. They may have just gotten an advanced degree or degree, certificate, and now they're leaving to, obviously make more money, oftentimes going to this company's competitors. And with that, they're taking all the investment that company made, the training, the cost of hiring, onboarding, and they also were noticing that a lot of times these were some of the top performers, the employees that they necessarily didn't want to see leave. So we were tasked with creating a tool to help bolster this company's career planning aspect, not only within their current department, but also show them that when you work for a billion-dollar company with a parent company that has multiple subsidiaries, that there are plenty of options within this company that offer better options than leaving for greener pastures. So in this example, on the next video, we will dive into Samantha and show a little more detail on how to actually integrate your personas into the design. Hopefully this video has helped give you some tips for getting into the persona mindset. It's a great user experience tool that can provide great insights into user-driven design. And hopefully you'll check out the next video like I mentioned and see how you take the persona into the design phase. Also, if you liked this video, please check out the other Modest UX videos, like us, and subscribe. And remember, when you're modest, users lead the way.